Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Deaf Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production podcast network. We hope to see you online.
Afghanistan, Bananistan.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Wake Up Heavy, Recollections of Horror. This is Mark Begley, your host, and this is my look back at September episode, plus a look forward at upcoming recordings, upcoming episodes, news and notes, etc. I need to start off this episode, though, with some corrections. I haven't done this in a while.
There we go again.
On my Rancho Deluxe Blu-ray review episode, I got a few facts wrong. This was just me relying on my poor memory and not checking these things before I talked about them. I mentioned enjoying British thrillers from the early 70s, and I was talking about I Start Counting, and that was actually released in 1969. Close, but still erroneous. I also mentioned that Walking the Edge was a 70s film, and it's actually from 1985, and I think I was just going off of my assumption due to the cast, due to the trailer that I had watched, and just didn't think it was made that late. I mentioned that Jeremy was Fun City Edition's first release, and it was actually Alphabet City. I think Jeremy is just the one that I first became aware of. Corrections out of the way. Movie watches pretty slight this month, or last month I should say. This month should be a lot heavier. It already has been. Top rewatches of September 2021 include Sunset Boulevard, The Survivors, a Walter Matthau, Robin Williams movie that I had been wanting to catch for a while. I watched this a bunch as a kid, and because of my Walter Matthau kick lately, I kept thinking about it, and I would do my normal search, and it just wasn't available. And then all of a sudden one day, I see it in new releases, and I can't remember where it was playing, but either a cable channel or a streaming service. It is, some of the comedy is quite dated in that, a little politically incorrect for these times, but it was still fun to watch. I watched Deliverance, which is a constant favorite of mine. It's hard to watch in spots, but I tend to get an itch, and that is one of my favorite survival films. Of course, I watched American Werewolf in London for that episode with Anthony King. One of my favorites, if not my favorite, film noir, The Big Sleep. As confusing as it is, I love watching that movie, mainly for the actresses in the film.
That doesn't sound right.
Started in on the first 3 Hellraiser films, and this is for an upcoming episode with Chris Dashew over at the Culture Cast. I watched the first 2, and we'll get to the third sometime this week. So that'll probably be on my watch list for next month, or for this month. See, it's confusing to me too. Watches with Cleo. There weren't that many. Mainly watches with the whole family. So I'll start with those. We watched The Suicide Squad, which I enjoyed much, much, much more than Suicide Squad. That is mainly because of James Gunn's wacky, almost horror film version of these DC comic characters. It was a lot of fun. It was very weird and pretty gory, and so we enjoyed that. Cleo wanted to watch Fear Street, so we watched that trilogy, I believe, all in one day on a weekend. She really enjoyed it. I, of course, liked the films, and I think my wife enjoyed those as well. She wanted us to finally finish the Harry Potter series. She watches those all the time, and my wife and I had watched most of them, except for the last two. So we watched the Half-Blood Prince and the two Deathly Hallows films. We had a little horror-thon last weekend. Cleo and I watched Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I'll talk a little bit more about that. My wife was out doing something, so we wanted to find another one that my wife wouldn't probably mind not seeing with us. And I had mentioned Tourist Trap a number of times in the past, and so she picked that one. I think it really worked well for her. So both those movies she really enjoyed. Tourist Trap is just creepy as all get out, so I was curious to see what her reaction would be to that. And I think she liked it. And then later that night, as a family, we watched the first Scream, which, again, we all enjoyed.
No, it's just, what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Started to watch Murder by Death again, per Cleo's request. They both fell asleep about halfway through, so we haven't finished it. My favorite first-time watches of September include The Hot Rock, still on my heist kick.
Afghanistan, Bananistan.
And that one was a lot of fun with Robert Redford and George Segal, directed by Peter Yates, who the next year would do The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which I watched last month. And he directed one of my favorite movies from my teen years, Breaking Away. I watched that so many times, and I need to see it again. One funny thing about The Hot Rock, there's an actress in this movie that has the best name I've ever seen in my life, Topo Swope. And I think this was only like one of maybe 2 or 3 movies that she was in. I watched a great documentary about horror anthologies called Tales of the Uncanny. So it gave me this whole nice list of anthologies to catch, and of course I lost my list. But I believe it's on Tubi, and I think quite a few of the anthologies that they mention, a lot of the Amicus and Hammer anthologies, are also on Tubi right now. So watch them. One of the movies that they mentioned was Kwaidan, a Japanese movie. I'm pretty sure I watched it like immediately after, and it's beautiful. It's really long, and I did get a little restless during one of the stories. It went on for quite a while, but it is gorgeous and really, really fascinating. I watched the new James Wan film Malignant, like so many other people did. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts and wacko and was pretty fun. I wouldn't put it super high on my favorite modern horror list, but you should definitely check it out. And then, of course, I watched the other Fun City Edition films. I Start Counting, which I really enjoyed, and Walking the Edge, which I also really enjoyed. I'm just looking forward to seeing what they're coming up with next. Their next release actually is Radio On, another film I have no recollection of, but it looks really, really cool. So since it's now October, most of the streaming channels just have tons of content. A couple of things that I'm looking forward to on Shudder are Razorback and Just Before Dawn. I've seen bits and pieces of Razorback in the past, and it's an exploitation film about a big old boar, but it is crazy. And Just Before Dawn is one of those early slasher films that I started watching years ago on Prime, and I believe it was a crappy VHS rip and it looked pretty awful, and I stopped. And then whenever I would get that urge to revisit it and hope that it was a better version, it wouldn't be available. It had a release in the last couple of years on Blu-ray, and I'm assuming that that's what they're going to be showing later this month. So I'm really looking forward to that. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. Every other streaming service has a whole bunch of stuff. You should be set for October. Okay, upcoming episodes and recordings. I will be dropping the Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things episode next week. It's pretty much done. I'm just taking my time with it. That should be out probably next Tuesday. I did a recording with Chris Dashew on not a horror movie, although it was pretty horrible, the Elvis film Fun in Acapulco. I'll let you guys know when that's out. We're going to be recording that episode on the first 3 Hellraiser movies. And then I have another recording with Chris and a few other folks on Twitch of the Death Nerve, aka Bay of Blood, aka whatever else it goes by, which I am really looking forward to. I haven't watched that movie in years, and it is absolutely bonkers. Throughout the next month or so, I will be recording the other episodes on the Alan Ormsby Bob Clark series that I'm doing. All right, I think that's it. Trying to keep this one super short this time. Should have a lot more to report on my look back on October when that's released. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great
Halloween season.
And don't forget,
Anything can happen when you wake up heavy. Ho, 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 ho.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.